So this is the side, kind of the two side rails for the chair. You can see I've put a biscuit joint in here, which is just a little saw blade that cuts kind of a half circle in there. So with these, I'm just going to do a dry fit now. Otherwise, when we do the glue up, you would put glue in these little half circles and put the biscuits in here. This biscuit joiner is kind of the precursor and maybe the predecessor to the more fancy domino joiners that they make now. I don't know about you, but a new domino joiner from Festool isn't really in my budget, and this biscuit joiner has been in my workshop for about 25 years now, so it works just fine. I have things that I made a long time ago that still are joined together. Holds really nice. So I centered the biscuit on the wider 5/4 stock here, and centered the biscuit, had to adjust the biscuit joiner in between both of those to get the depth, because this is 3/4 stock, to center it on there. So once I centered the biscuit joint here and here, they both center, so now this has a little bit of an inset here, and on the other side a little bit of an inset here too. So that is how it will look once we get some glue in there and put it together. I'm going to round over these inside kind of stiles, these supports here. Round these over, but I'll just knock down this corner a little bit because there's not too much to work with there, just to give that a more of a smoother appearance. Plus the legs and like the bottom of this, those will all be kind of rounded over as well. Alright, so to put the lag bolts in here, I'm going to I did the whole setup, and the whole piece has been set up here. Let's see if I can back this up a little bit for you here. So the lag bolt's going to go through the leg, and it goes inside of here about an inch and about 1 1/16. So I have to account for that when I drill the hole through here to accept the lag bolt. So I have a 5/16 inch lag bolt by 6 inches, and inside the threads it's about 1/4 of an inch inside the threads. So I have a 1/4 inch bit that's going to go way into here. So what I did was I first measured this, the length of the bit on here, the length of the lag bolt, how far that needs to go in, and then I'm going to add this 1 1/8 onto that, and then that will give me my depth to drill all the way in. And I set this up right because if I'm off a little bit this way, it really doesn't matter, but I'm going to eyeball it down this way so that at least I go in here straight, and then the lag bolts will go in straight and they won't break out on this side. Okay, I'm going to use a corded drill for this because it's a lot of work, and the corded drill also has a level on it, which will allow me to somewhat stay level when I drill this hole. So I find the little center bit that my the little center hole that my Forstner bit left, and I'm going to drill in. So I'm going to grab some beeswax, and so that hole's already drilled in there. And the reason I'm using a 3/4 inch Forstner bit for these holes is so that this driver bit, 1/4 inch driver bit that fits into my drill, will just take a regular socket, and that socket will fit in there. When I drive these in, it also fits, what I'm using here is a 5/16 inch by 6 lag bolt, but I'm using a 1/4 inch lag bolt, a 1/4 inch washer for a 1/4 inch lag bolt. It still fits over there, but it's much tighter, and it fits inside of the 3/4 inch hole. So I'll put this bit in my drill. Then we'll start this. Oops, I'm going to put a little bit of beeswax on here. Just drag it across the threads. It'll help it go in, because it has quite a ways to travel here. That was my clutch set at 15, and it's in there and nice and tight. So we'll do that for the rest of these, drill them out, and screw all the lag bolts in just to get a dry fit. We're not finished yet because we still have to pull everything apart and do the finishing edges on here, and finish the legs, and get this ready. Also, the reason I did this 3/4 inch, because it fit the lag bolts and the washers that I was using, but also I have a plug cutter that will make 3/4 inch plugs for these too, so I can plug these. The top is kind of tapered here, and it tapers the top to help you get it started. So just put a little bit of glue on these. The fit is pretty tight, so you don't need too much glue, but I like to put it all the way around. And then I tend to line up, or I like to line up the grain, so when I'm sanding this or trimming this, it's the same as the leg. And just pound them in. leave a little bit so you can trim that off, and then wipe the extra glue off so there's not a whole bunch of extra sanding. That glue dries pretty hard, so I like to get as much off as possible. And then I usually don't touch these for about 24 hours or so. Let them completely dry, and then I'll come back and I will trim them off, and I'll show you that in a little bit, how we make these smooth. So in order to take these down to be flush, the plugs, I'll use a chisel, and I'll show you that in a minute, but I wanted to show you first how I kind of dress up a cabinet scraper. So these are really helpful. I'm not a big fan, because I'm indoors, of using sandpaper, or sandpaper I guess is okay, but sanders, electric sanders, palm sanders, orbital sanders, I try not to use those indoors, so the cabinet scraper is a nice tool. So the first thing you want to do is put it in the vise. And this is just the first time you get them. You want this to have a perfectly flat top. So I will just gently, using a pretty fine chisel. I use this for sharpening saw blades. Not a chisel, sorry. A very fine file. And I use this for sharpening saw blades, like hand saws. Just make it nice and flat. This one is curved because I don't want to gouge any of the legs with the corners here. So this one has a little bit of a curve to it. I use this one most of all. So once you get this nice and flat, take it out of there. And right now, you have, sometimes I'll run it across here just to take all the little extra burrs off. But right now, if you feel it this way, you have a little bit of a lip on there. And that tiny little lip, which is just a little bit of the metal curled up, that is what you want. See if I push this away from me? That already takes a nice little shaving off of there. And push away from you, and I kind of bend this a little bit to push away. But you can see how it makes pretty quick work of the wood. You get quite a few little shavings on there, and it makes it really nice and smooth, and I don't sand it after I do that. So that works pretty well. But what you usually have to do is, on this edge here, I'm going to take a steel bar, and I'm just using a screwdriver, which works pretty well, but you want to lay it on a flat surface like this, and you want to push down really hard on a flat surface. What you're doing is you're pushing some of that metal out, and do that all along here really, really hard. Push down real hard, and you'll start to feel that flatten out. And then what you want to do is put this back in the vise, and then take your piece of or your metal bar, and then run it along here and push down real hard. And what you will do is that little piece of metal that you pushed out toward the edge, you're going to curl that back down, and it will push down real hard, and it'll curl it out on both sides. So it kind of curls out this way and curls out that way. And then you can just keep pulling up like this, and you can feel that little edge on there. And then that little edge is what you want to make those little burrs. Or I'm sorry, to make these little shavings and clean up your edge without sandpaper. So I bought a pretty nice set of these, really cheap. I think it's from like a Rockler or Woodcraft or something. A whole set of them for like 20 bucks. And they don't come dressed. The edges aren't turned over like that. They're just actually pretty rough. Looks like they might stamp them out or something. But so you just have to dress your edges, and you can do all the different edges that you want. All right, so next we'll show you how to make these perfectly flush, and how I use the the cabinet scrapers with those. Alright, so on my leg, here's one of the plugs, the screw plugs. And what I like to do is start with a chisel. This is about a 1.5 inch chisel. And you have to be careful. Just take a little bit at a time. We're going to kind of shave this off. I'm going across the grain, trying not to let it grab too much. Sometimes it grabs and takes it down into the grain. Just kind of read your grain. And if you feel like the grain is being pulled or it's pulling that chisel down into it, go from a different angle. And then try to slice through it and get it down as close as you can to the surface. And that is actually really close. You can see too why I wiped the glue off. You can see a little bit of the yellow glue around there. But you want to get this as close as you can to being perfectly flush with just your chisel. And then we'll bring in that cabinet scraper that we just kind of dressed. And I'm going to pull it, push it away from me. I'm sure you can see that. And you'll watch as it takes all the glue off. You can see it's taking quite a bit off of there. This side the grain's a little bit, the grain is reversed there, so I'm going to pull back this way. There. And that is, take all the little shavings off. And that is perfectly flush. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit it with some real coarse 60 grit sandpaper. Not too much. What that does is I'm going to paint these legs, and I want that to be the 60 grit will rough up the wood just enough to accept that paint. And believe it or not, the cabinet scraper makes it so smooth, it would almost be too smooth, and I want it to be a little bit coarser. Just like when you repaint something that's varnished or something, you scuff it a little bit with sandpaper. So that's how we do it. Now there's quite a few of these all over the legs. I'm going to go through and do the rest of these the same way. We'll smooth everything out.